On this side, some of the models, they literally put this was attached underneath, so you couldn't get to it. But here we could save our own cells, because then this whole top can go. And we don't need to worry these screws, but you'll see these going around this head. There's 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. What I'll do is I loosen, say, the 2 in the back or the front first. Then I'll just loosen these a little bit, just to sort of let it, ease itself off, and I'll loosen these. And I'll see that it gets a little play, and then I'll just drive them all out. So if you want,
First, those
yeah, just give them a couple turns just to bring it off.
So this is a couple of turns.
Yeah, and then do the 2 in the front. And then I go to the sides. And then I'll explain to you when we put this on, there's a certain way to put this back on. And
Okay.
you can, and then do the sides. The same is, you'll see how it has an impact when you're doing volumes and you're at your 7.5 and you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you notice your 1, 2, and 3, say you're right at, so I'll just say, for example, 7.50. Your 4, 5, and 6 are 7.45. That's telling me that the head is on, but it's slightly tilted. Yeah, no, see, these will hold to this, but, yeah, go ahead and take them. See, since it's new, it's tight.
Completely out.
Yeah. Yeah. These are deeper, so you'll see these for the back, but these are going to be the deepest screws. They're going to go down the longest, because each one of them are going down those center of those shafts. 4 are stationary, 4 are connected to the plate down here. This is where you'll spend most of your time, is on these 2. When it comes to this, it's not too bad. But this is going to make all your reading. This is where most of your OQ issues between the plumbing and this here.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's still. Oh, there we go.
Not that'll help you at all either. Go over anything.
Let me get rid of this one here too. So then now,
This assembly is
this
the
gets
easiest part.
away. This gets you away from you, so that you're not going to cringe, and mess up any of these lines while you're trying to play with this. Oh, there it is. A little nice. Here, a lot of times, they're not always going to stay there. More than likely, they're going to be stuck. They're going to be stuck up in here.
Dankeschön.
Now, because this is all still all nice and new and it looks all nice and clean, if these here give you that green or brown tint, more than likely, your green and brown are gonna be right up inside of there. And usually it's a Q-tip. I get a wet Q-tip. I have ones on like wooden sticks,
Long one.
long that you can get up there and clean it all out. But because if you see it on here, you know definitely it's up inside of here. And more than likely, these, because these still look brand new, they're still stuck. They're still stuck in here. So I have a particular tool that I can use, because sometimes they're so stuck because they've been on there so long that your finger's not going to be able to pop them out. But all these would come off. As soon as you pull this off,
If you don't have them when you disassemble the pump, just put them on the back side, opposite direction.
with these,
If you don't have the new-
I would never reuse them.
Yeah.
And if I had to just pull this off to look at something, because I've already pressed these, I would get rid of them and I put new ones.
Yeah, but in case of emergency, you don't have any, you can put them on back. And,
Well, in case of emergency, as you weren't going to do a PM, because normally a PM, they're automatic. A PM is automatically your O-rings and gaskets, unless, and what I do is, over here in the States, most companies keep a logbook of all their analysis run on that auto sampler. So I'll use that as my judge. If I go through their logbook and see, oh, Pump Bay only had 10, maybe 15 runs since the last time an OQ was done, this same side, might have had maybe anywhere from 10 to 15, that's telling me I'm not gonna do that. So in the section of that protocol where it says perform, required and performed, or not required, that's when I'll put not required. And even though there's not a spot in there, I'll state the reason underneath. Due to only 15 analysis performed since last full PMOQ. And then I wouldn't even crack this top off. So that's usually a sign, and even though it's a PM, that's why when they rewrote that, they left that to our discretionary. If you're doing your system wash and that thing still looks like brand new, the tops of those pistons are still white, you don't see any gump or anything in there, and you did a system wash, things still look really good, everything is coming out of here, and usually it's really customer dependent. I see customers that have run that thing through so many cleaning cycles afterwards that I'll go there, and even though they had 100 analysis run in 6 months, it still looks as clean as the day I cleaned it 6 months ago. But I'm still gonna do their gaskets and O-rings because I know they use it just about every single day for the past 6 months. And what's gonna happen is if you start letting it go, there's when they're gonna start getting air coming up because it's gonna wear that O-ring out.
and the noisy, they become, the
Yeah, and then they
operation
start,
becomes
because then they
noisy.
start losing their little bit of silicone that's ring on the outer side of it. But there's a place in the OQ where it states performed and/or required. In the actual work, in the folio section, I'm just.
These
sucking
are
some of
already
these.
some there is here. See, some particles here, I see those.
Yeah, and it's probably whatever.
You need a
Oh,
tip, something moving.
yeah, well, we're gonna be pulling these glass tubes off of here anyway. But these are really good on what you normally are gonna find. Because believe it or not, these are gonna start getting a pinkish, orange hue. It's usually all depending on the constant drug that they're using all the time. Or it's gonna be a greenish or brown. And then if you see it all on this, you know for sure, it's the same as up in here. They're gonna be inside of here. You know, these we call the blanks, so these are the blinds. Now, this is a different, this is glass, just cut glass. You'll see the difference when you take a blind and compare it to the finished edge, and this is quartz. Yeah,
You
that's
wanna
just
say they're
cut.
not the same?
They're not the same.
Oh.
You have to, because I've run across where somebody did not bring their own spare glass
Uh-huh.
cylinders, so they took one from this position. It's got a slightly different ID. It's glass, that's quartz,
Oh,
and they're
I didn't-
finished edges.
Uh-huh.
And you'll see when we take one off,
Wow.
they're
There are
different.
no space, no.
They're not this, and you'll see, if you were to go and order, now, see, I don't know where you go to order your parts that you need. I mean, do you have you know, for me, even though I don't live anywhere near here, I still can order parts and they'll ship it to my house. You know, here, or I'll have them, if I know I'm going to a particular customer that I know I'm gonna need so many of something, I'll call Distek and have them ship it to the customer, so it's there when I get there. But mostly, I always carry my spare glass and blinds. I call these blinds. These,
This is the muscle training.
that's because you know they're still good and nice and new, but now,
You see?
yeah, now you can see it a little better, and you can see the difference between the two.
So these are blinds.
No, they're,
Those are blinds, yeah.
yeah. See how these
Thicker.
are all smooth and finished,
And they're
And
thicker.
it's thicker, yeah.
and those blinds are regular glass.
Uh-huh.
When they break there, they'll shatter, or they'll like splinter and all. These are a lot more rugged.
Have those ever been worn?
Worn out?
Yeah, worn out.
I've changed them where you see score marks, and that is when they use a lot of buffers. Salt starts falling down in between, in here.
Start rubbing
Because
it.
the piston actually is slightly smaller, so the piston will drop right through the glass. It's the O-rings that are the things that hold it. Well, what happens is some of that crystal form from the buffers gets into those O-rings, and then they get scraped up and down, and you'll see it score into the glass. See how much easier it. And then what's gonna happen is you're gonna get all kinds of vacuum leaks, you're gonna get a ton of air coming up every time you sample. Whenever it's gonna have any type of pressure, or back pressure, it's gonna blow out the back sides, you know, down, and then next thing you know, it's running down and it's getting on here. But there's, yeah, you always want to make sure that, and I'll always carry a couple, usually only one blind. And I don't like to see where a blind is missing, because a lot of times where most of the damage is done is damage is usually done by me. Because I'll turn around, and I'll be taking these off, and I'll go like this, and I'll set that down, and what does it do? Roll, boom. Oh. So 75% of the times when these things break, they break because we did it.
Yeah.
And the other is, you put that head slightly on wrong,
And the
and
pressure.
you're turning
step by
that
step,
screw,
yeah.
and next thing you know,
Oh, yeah.
you just now ran a crack down one, and that means the whole head's gotta come back off. You gotta pull it, and then trying to pull that, and if it broke to where now you got shard glass, it's not like you can just grab your hand and try, so now you've gotta get that glass, you know, out of there, and sometimes it's just, get a tool and make sure no one's looking to give it a whack, break it the rest of the way to get it off, because you're not gonna grab that to pull that thing off, but you need to get that glass piece out of there. But it is true, 75% of the time, we're the ones that are gonna break these. And it's almost guaranteed, going out there and you start doing these, your first few, you're gonna break them. And it's either putting it back on, because I've been through, I did it all. And every now and then I still break one of this day where I think, oh man, I got that top on real good. And you start, and there's a particular way, a pattern is how you want to do your screws on that head, because you don't want to drive it down, slant it this way or back. You've got to sort of like bring it down. And that you can, and it may not all be all the way on, it'll be slightly off, and I'll give it one turn of a screw, there went one.
Like
Ah.
end of the engine.
And that's the blinds. The blinds break the easiest because they're just glass, but they're sitting in here and they're still they're wobbly and loose. That's the biggest thing, is trying to get your cover back on, and at the same time, all that has to do is be off a touch. It's not gonna get back up in there. It's gonna catch that edge. And you're not, and what you're gonna do, you're gonna sit there and push to get it on until it snaps. So there's a little way to play. Now, there are others out there that'll take this plate off when they go to, because then it makes it easy access, especially to that back one. I've gotten a way that I can get in here with my two fingers and sort of maneuver it to drop it down, because as long as the back one is sort of in, then I can play with the front one because it's open and it's easy to access. But I wouldn't even put a screw in until I know it looks like it's sitting kind of even, because there's a set of screws that are going to be solid. These right here, this one, every other one. They're the ones that the rod goes straight all the way through. They're not going to move. They're the ones that I screw in first, because these others, they're controlling that plate down there. There's where these are all going to go in solid. Those others is what's going to bring that plate up. Because you can turn around, and once we take all this glass out, we can take this plate now and slide it down, up. But
I have one question. So I did it another way. I never take this off. I take those, how do you call those?
the distributors?
Distributor, I unhooked everything, and then I hooked this screw, unscrew, and put this one by one.
That's the way I was taught 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, this is, and
Take
then
it off by the
no way,
distributors.
you can crack those, and then you don't need to disassemble everything. This is what I did last time, and then it works without any problems. No wiring is disconnecting that much, so depending. So if you have access, it doesn't matter. But you are not in danger to break anything. I don't know.
Yeah, but now you're pushing down, though, because now you've taken these distributors, so you've got 3 screws now on each head that have to go down sort of the same way. So you're going to still have to do your bounce back and forth, because now, since you did not adjust these, so these are locked, because your plate's down on there. So now you've taken that distributor, so you have your glass. So you take the piston and the glass out.
Yeah, it goes out. It easily goes out.
Yeah, because some people I do know do that, but they still, everyone I know takes this whole plate.
I didn't.
But I was
didn't have
trained
that,
your way.
Yeah, I didn't have that training before, so I didn't have PM training and did it what was to me logically. Like I did it like that way, and I find it much easier. Maybe it's you are not prone to crack anything. And now I get scared to put it back and tighten the screw, and then you crack something. It's not easy going situation.
So you attack these and then you take
Yeah,
the
but
rest of
so if you lose those 3 screws, everything, and then one and down, and then you can take everything out. Clean it, put back.
But then you have your skin off.
Skin off, yeah, skin has to be off. Like you have, anyway, have to have access.
You put them
this
individually over
area.
here and then put it
So,
down.
and then
One
you're
by
also,
one.
so you have
You
those
clean
3.
one, replace O-ring, put back, and then another one.
Yeah. So you're keeping the same glass in the same position.
Yeah, you can mark it so.
Yeah, See, now, see, for me, I make sure, I don't count which came out of which position,
Yeah.
but I do want to make sure that I put them in reverse. Whenever
glass-
I do a
glasses?
PM, yep.
Well,
But see, this is where
You can do-
everyone is going to be, I can show you my way. We can bring another person off the field, they're going to have, their way, of doing it. But the way you're doing it was the way I was originally trained.
Yeah.
But as soon as I started going out in the field
uh-huh.
with mentors, oh, you don't want to do it this way.
Well,
And see, but
There is other
it makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're used to doing that. Yeah, you're gonna slide, because then you're still gonna, well, then you probably don't really have to take your blinds out.
no, yeah.
That way. But then you're taking these three, plus you're taking the ones out of the bottom
Yeah.
out, because then you gotta bring that whole assembly out.
Yeah.
Because you'd have a real hard time if you left
Yeah.
the piston on.
Yeah.
You'd never get that glass off.
Mm-hmm.
So these blinds are for the solutions with 8 positions.
If you had an 8, or if they had a 7. Now, normally 7s, they'll still have 6 because they use the 7th position for either a media or place. And they'll have those replacement lines, these sitting in position number 7. So they'll still have it heat to the same, stir the same, it's just their media blank.
So you when you change the o-ring,
See,
so
I change-
you reverse the glass cylinder.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good.
And I don't number which one came from one now.
It does, yeah,
Again,
they're the same, yeah.
again, there'll be somebody else out there, I know another gentleman, Mark, who makes sure they go in the exact same position, the exact same way, in the
Yeah, I
exact-
don't need why. Yeah.
And I said, no, because I don't want it to keep wearing in the same, because
yeah.
this is where it's gonna score and wear, is right
Yeah.
there. Because that's where all the up and down motion is, right in this area. It only goes down here to sample and to wash. But all the other functions are all up in here. So I make sure that, okay, when I put them in my cleaning solution or my soap, I make sure that how I take them off, they're going in that way. I have a brush that I can get down in there, like a test tube brush.
Would you
Clean
guys
it.
have here?
I haven't thought about it. And I take all 6 and then turn them and bring them in, and I'll do the same thing. I'll brush it, and that way I know when I take them out and rinse them off, now they're gonna go in opposite. Now, some do, some, are particular. They want it to go in the same position. I myself don't want to keep seeing it
Yeah.
where, it's almost like how I move these on the pinch valve. I don't want them to be in the same position. I turn them, and I'm not concerned, because really, put them in the exact same position is if you still had the same O-rings and stuff on there. Because once you change the O-rings, it doesn't matter which glass you slip it into, because
Yeah.
that O-ring is gonna conform to the glass that it's.
Sure.
it's in.
Yeah.
But what can happen if we didn't replace this?
If you don't replace them, what it helps to is balance the surface, balance the top. It's so that, so that they're not just using these 6, they're using all 8. But Ed had a different reason why he would always replace these, and I do too. If I find one broken or missing, I'm gonna charge them, but I'm gonna replace it. I'm gonna put one in there. I'm not gonna let it go without. Some say, oh, well then, they didn't have one of these blind gaskets.
Yeah.
Well, I carry them with me, and I'm gonna replace them. And I think Ed had another reason why they should be replaced too, because another is if you break a leak up top here, there's where it can find its way through, right on through. And then now you're getting down into your switch, which can fry that switch, and you'll know when that goes, it's when the thing starts going down and it does, oh, Ed.
Yes.
Just who I was talking about.
Who, me?
Yep.
What about me? What do I do wrong?
What was some of the reasoning where I mentioned that they should, if these are missing or broken, you should replace these blinds in position?
You should replace them? Yeah.
Yeah. Now what, because I said to him, I said, I think you had a different reasoning why we should always use these blank gaskets and the blind should always be in place.
I didn't have any reasoning for it. I normally, a lot of times, I put the blank cylinders in there, the blank glass in there, just because, for aesthetic purposes, plus you don't want any dust. I always keep the bottom O-ring in it at least. The upper one, I didn't really care whether I had the upper one in or not. I could use it as a regular O-ring. But Jeff Brinker, the president of the company, said that allows dirt and dust to get inside there, and he preferred it being put back together the way that it was built. President tells you to do that, you tend to do it the way the president tells you to put it together.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning too, it just made it evenly balanced when you're putting the head back on.
Well, again, as far as the solid ones go on the dead-ended ones.
Yeah.
The solid, you can use an O-ring. Like typically I would just take off one of the used O-rings and just use it on that position.
See,
That makes it
Pack
easier for me to
solids.
put, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You prefer to put the solid ones on there. Because when I'm putting the lid back on there, I can put my finger in there and make sure it lines up, so it makes it help.
That's true.
But
'Cause
you
I was
can,
telling them that was usually the biggest issue is the blind.
but the other way you
back.
can go about doing it is just push this position out and put that on top of the glass before you put it back in.
Yeah.
And that helps you do it too. If you pull this out, and when you're putting it back together, you put it on there like that, then that makes you it helps you to get it lined up when you're putting the lid back on.
Yeah, because they're gonna be your hardest two to get into place, because these line up the other holes. This right here forces the lining. It's these two who are gonna be.
Well, not always. This glass here can catch on the lip of any one of these things. You have to be real careful about how you put it back down. And when you go to tighten the screws down, you need to go just much like when you put a tire on, and you don't want to put all of them, just go in a row putting them. You want to go crisscross, back and forth, tightening it down. Because if you tighten down one side and then you tighten down the other side, a lot of times it'll pop the glass out to the lip of this. And when you get one of the screws and it pops it down into place, it'll slam down on the glass, and that'll be your worst day. Because I've seen people crack every single one of the positions when they did it before.
Yeah, that's what I was explaining to them about doing the star, going back and forth, and making sure that you're in, and if anything is gonna give you, like it doesn't wanna give, don't continue pushing down. That's telling you that something is in the way. And if you give it that extra quarter turn, there's where you're gonna hear that little.
I typically don't
snap.
put the screws on. I put the screws on once I get it all down and I can see that the holes are right there, ready to go on. So I'll put it all on by hand until I get
that's how I do,
all
yeah.
positions on.
And then sometimes just to balance it, I may have to set one screw in so I can let go of one side to diggle the glass to fit into the.
You're just using your finger to push the glass around with a syringe, because they all move pretty well when it's inside there. You can see the movement on it.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys need to take lunch, because the food's here and it's